Scuffles erupt in Paris as police brutality protests turn violent. Paris, France. Scuffles broke out between French security forces and protesters following a demonstration against police brutality in front of the Paris town hall. Despite the violence, some restaurant customers continued to enjoy their drinks and meals as the clashes unfolded right before them. The protest, organized by a coalition of left-wing and human rights groups, was intended to draw attention to police brutality and racism in France. The country has been rocked by a series of high-profile incidents in recent years, including the death of George Floyd in the United States, which sparked a global wave of protests against police brutality and racial injustice. The demonstration started out peacefully, with thousands of protesters gathering in front of the Paris town hall to demand justice for victims of police brutality. Many carried signs and chanted slogans, calling for an end to police violence and systemic racism. However, tensions quickly escalated as protesters clashed with police, who responded with tear gas and water cannons. Some protesters threw objects at police officers and set fire to trash cans and other debris. The violence spilled over into nearby streets, as protesters and police engaged in running battles throughout the city center. Despite the chaos, some restaurant customers continued to enjoy their meals and drinks as if nothing was happening. Videos and photos shared on social media showed diners sitting calmly at outdoor tables, surrounded by clouds of tear gas and the sounds of explosions and shouting. The sight of people dining while violence erupted around them drew criticism from many on social media, who accused the diners of being out of touch with the struggles of ordinary people. Some argued that the protesters were fighting for the right to dine in peace, free from the fear of police violence and harassment. The French government has faced criticism in recent years for its handling of protests and demonstrations. Many protesters and human rights activists accuse the government of using heavy-handed tactics to suppress dissent, including the use of tear gas, water cannons, and rubber bullets. The government has defended its actions, arguing that it has a duty to maintain public order and prevent violence and vandalism. However, critics say that the government's response is often disproportionate and that it infringes on the right to free speech and assembly. The protests in Paris come at a time of heightened tension in France, as the country grapples with a range of social and political issues. In addition to concerns about police brutality and racism, many French citizens are also worried about rising inequality, unemployment, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The protests are part of a broader movement for social justice and equality that has swept across the world in recent years. From the United States to Brazil, from Hong Kong to Belarus, citizens have taken to the streets to demand change and hold their leaders accountable. While the protests in Paris may have turned violent, they also serve as a reminder of the power of collective action and the importance of speaking out against injustice. Whether dining peacefully in a restaurant or marching through the streets, people have the right to make their voices heard and demand a better world for all.